Audio.
Hi everybody and welcome to Between Two Bridges. My name is Andrea Proska. I'm a Canadian Olympian. I raced in Tokyo in the women's 8.
And I'm Whitney Powell, international coxswain and broadcaster.
And if we're looking a little windswept, well, it's breezy out there at Head of the Charles, but we're here to help walk you through all the action in the exciting 8s racing that we have coming up. And there are quite a few exciting crews starting, I think, 29 seconds ago.
I think you're right. We have actually been in between two bridges blowing away. So we are now back in the studio and we are very excited to bring you all of the action starting with the men's Champ 8s.
Yeah, and I mean Head of the Charles. For those of you who are just joining, maybe you have loved ones who are doing this and you don't know much about the event. I mean, it's really one of a kind. It's the largest rowing regatta in the world. It spans 2.5 days, over 11,000 athletes. Hold on, I'm looking at my stats. 67 events, 2,400 volunteers, and it takes place over 3 miles, or as Coxswain told me, if you steer it right, 4,702 meters.
That's right. And if we're looking at the conditions today, we are looking at the lightweights too,
Yes.
which we're very excited to see.
Well, maybe worth talking about why collision. So this is a head race. In a traditional rowing race, you're 2 kilometers long. Everyone has their own lanes, their own buoys that you need to stay in between. This one's a little bit different. It's a bit of a almost mass start, 15 seconds between each boat, which in the big boats, which we're going to see now, is not very much time, easy to make up within a couple good turns. And not only do they need to make it through a 3-mile course, but they need to make it through, not into, 6 consecutive bridges.
Absolutely, definitely more than 2. So if these coxswains can
Whitney, maybe you can frame a little bit of what a coxie does.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. Most people don't really care too much until they need a driver. So here we are, excited to bring you the perspectives of both sides. Looking at the start of this race, this is a very exciting race where we actually start in a basin going one at a time, shooting down the course. And so as you can see on the screen, some of the boats have actually already started, it looks like, coming down the course. I don't want to talk too long because we have some very exciting boats to talk about, it looks like.
But what's the job of a coxswain?
We should get there, shouldn't we? Yes, the job of a coxswain is He is very well known for being a sculler and has been so versatile as he's been thrown into some of these eights at Harvard on the national team, as well as some of his other teammates, Nick Mead and Alex Karofsky. And coming down the course, again, here we have Leander Club, which I actually got to go to the UK and cox the guys for a year. So I am excited to see them out here. We have Henry Fieldman, who is actually the women's GB cox, out here for his first time coxing the men. This is the development 8 for the GB team, coxing them for his first time down the course, and from what I hear, has done a phenomenal job.
Well, worth mentioning, I mean, Leander is a legendary team in that they have more Olympic medals than any sports team in any event. So fantastic crew, great place, and also train on the iconic Thames River. But let's not miss an opportunity to talk about the Huskies on your screen right now. This is from Washington, Seattle. They finished 7th last year, but were 7th at the national championships. They certainly seem like a hungry crew.
They certainly do, and of course, moving so quickly here across the screen, it looks like we already have bow number 8, which is Brown. This is their Champ 8, the pride and joy of the Brown program here. As you can see, looking very calm and collected too, just kind of getting those blades in. Oh, I'd love to see it. Coming through here, bow number 9, right behind him is Dartmouth.
And on the top there, leader number 1, well, that is still the U.S. rowing team. One thing that we didn't mention is that you get bow number 1 by seeded. The top half is seeded by your performance last year. And they are reigning head of the Charles champions. So, and the same crew that went to World Championships and just missed out on Olympic qualification. There they are on your screen right now. So 8 blades in together. The men's 8, unfortunately named so because there are in fact 9 people in the boat. The coxswain can be male or female, 16 legs down together. Worth noting, you could probably see the water moving on your screen right now. This is not necessarily flat water. There's a lot of movement.
I was actually going to point out the same thing. You'll see from this angle too that a lot of these boats have blades kind of hanging just a teeny bit at the catch, and that's because they are getting some very strong wind pushing them the other way. So you can actually see very well in this US boat that they are trying to get those blades squared and to the water just a little bit sooner than they might normally do that, so they can get a little bit more anchorage from the wind.
Well, I was walking down the course, and it really does seem like there's a headwind no matter which way you're going right now. And what can happen with that is that if you have a crosswind, kind of pushes you off and can help upset the boat. Another example of why Head of the Charles is an international event, as we briefly look to Ukraine there, that was a composite crew. Back again to the leaders. So what's the benefit of going off first in a head race?
You know, the course is yours, and that's pretty cool when you can tell your guys, your women, that you have the line and you can take whatever line you want as long as you are constantly pushing away those crews behind you. Now, it does put a lot of pressure on you because you are the one with the target on your back. So everybody is going to be vying for that number 1 spot or the fastest time. So again, just because you're in front, this is a time trial format, and that doesn't mean that you just finish first. So you do have to keep in mind that people are going to constantly be pushing for that faster time, but you do have the ability to create whatever line you'd like.
You saw Syracuse on your screen just earlier. They were in bright orange. We just saw the Bulldogs, the Yale crew with bow number 3. After 13 years with the Bulldogs and a record equaling 14 national titles, their coach Steve Gladstone retired, now making way for Mike Gennaro. And right now on your screen, we have Harvard. They have had a tough last 2 years with perhaps some disappointing results, but can they change the trajectory with a podium at Head of the Charles?
You know, they sure can, and that's the beauty of rowing. We never know what's going to happen, right? It's not over until it's over. And it looks like here we have number 5, that is Leander. It looks like, are they in Northeastern? Or are they Boston? Boston blades?
Well, there's no mistaking the pink hippo that is the logo of the Leander boat crew. Zooming out here gives you a perspective of how far these boats are. Part of what's making Leander so successful is that they have 2 athletes who used to be in the Harvard boat. So that's Douda DeGraff and Miles Beeson as well. Miles Beeson coming from another crew. But either way, heavy weaponry in this boat.
Absolutely. There are actually a few guys in this boat that I coxed once or twice, which is kind of fun to see them out here on U.S. soil. Many guys, too, from Oxford Brooks, which is sort of a rival crew team, but the GB team does tend to pull from a lot of these programs up together. So they kind of both become these development programs for GB, which is really cool to kind of see them come together in boats like this.
Following along here with the U.S. Naval Academy men's crew, as they're putting the blades in the water, you can see little splashes coming up. That's what we call V splashes. If you do it right, there's a little bit of water that comes off the back of the blade. As that blade is rowed into the water, that means that it's placed at its maximum effectiveness. Being tall as a rower is a huge advantage because our arms are extensions of our oars. It's kind of like running. If you have a longer stride length, you go farther per step. Same with rowing. Number 23, Princeton heavyweight men here. Really important in these big boats that you're swinging together, keeping your weight nice and horizontal so you're not bouncing the boat down the course, which can be tough in lumpy conditions.
Absolutely, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's almost more important as a crew, especially these big guys. Like, these are big guys. They're throwing a lot of weight around. So you want to make sure that you're keeping them kind of still and quiet. And despite looking like there's a lot of movement and motion back and forth, we really try to keep the weight centered and still as we drive the blades through the water, especially in these choppy conditions.
Well, that bow number 1, U.S. rowing, is in the final stretch here. They're coming around the final turn at the end of this long turn that seems to take forever when you're in an 8, I'll tell you that much. There's a sharp turn into something called Elliot Bridge. You'll hear us talk about that a couple times. It is a pivotal moment. Here they come through it. And take a look at the crowd. This is what makes it so special. Not only are there 6 bridges, but there's 6 bridges packed with spectators.
Exactly. I mean, the ambiance here, the atmosphere, the cheering, the audience, the parents, the media cannot be beaten. This really is a premier event for spectators.
I mean, U.S. rowing, I could barely see anyone behind them there with their camera angle, but to me, it's looking like Yale is making up some time on that Syracuse boat. What would you be thinking? What would you be telling to your team as you see another boat creeping up behind?
Oh, I would be driving them forward like a bunch of horses here and just asking for a little bit more squeeze. It's hard to ask for more power and more pressure when you think your athletes are already at 100%, but you kind of have to tell them that you have a selective amount of turbo to use during a race. So I think of it as like a little turbo boost that I have a finite amount of during a race, and at some point, if I have to use it, I need it now, and they better respond.
A little bit of a master class here from the coxswain in the Harvard. So you're allowed to have your blades just over the buoys. You're even allowed to have your riggers over the buoys, and on those long turns as they're hugging the inside corners, it's not uncommon for them to do that to get the best line and the shortest line. But if you go over the buoys, then you will get a 5-second penalty per buoy. And 8s are not exactly nimble boats, so you can't turn very fast. So if you go across, I mean, you're going to be missing at least 3 to get back.
Exactly, and we are looking at Leander Club here. This is Henry Fieldman steering them right on that buoy line. You can see the buoys just chopping right through their blades there. And he's going to, if he does his line correctly as he's been practicing, peel off in maybe 1 buoy, and he will start to go diagonally underneath this Elliot Bridge. And we want to go diagonally because we're actually looking through the bridge as a coxswain to find the line on the other side.
Amazing encouragement there from the coxswain. I think that might actually be Sonia Gladstone. I believe we'll see Henry Fielding in the women's boat a little bit later.
Oh, we may have misspoke there.
But either way, so this is where the lactic acid has really built up. You're, 4,000 meters in from the Elliot Bridge, another 750 to go. You've just come off of a long turn. You're probably a little mentally exhausted. Look at that, blades just over top of the buoys. Also worth noting that it takes a lot of skills to not catch a buoy as you're putting it over. If you catch a buoy, what can happen is what we call in rowing is catching a crab, and you could get tangled in it. Your blade cannot come out clean, and it feels like a giant leviathan, a giant crab has come up, grabbed your blade and sucked it under the water, and that can cause a boat stoppage, right? Your boat feels like it's just had an anchor thrown overboard.
Absolutely. And one thing that we try to do as coxswains as well is actually warn our crews that that's coming, because they typically want us to be on the buoy line, but we just have to tell them to be a little bit prepared.
Brown University coming around through that Elliot Bridge. This is a great feeling when you know that there's just 750 meters left to go. This is where you'll see people raise a stroke rate. So what's stroke rate? Well, that's how many strokes per meter you're taking. These coxswains have cox boxes. They have a device that will tell them how many strokes per minute the crew is going to get. And in the final closing stages, as you squeeze the last little bit of energy out of your boat, you'll do that by we were talking about running earlier, right? You can increase your stride length, or you can increase your the steps that you're taking, so they'll increase their strokes per minute.
Absolutely. And like you said, we will try to do that pretty much through this bridge. So as we come...
Are those Santa hats?
I think we are maybe seeing the first costumes that we've seen, which is actually atypical for this race. We typically see quite a few costumes.
Yes, Harvard. Love it. Christmas spirit, but creeping up before Halloween. Looking like a bunch of elves with the candy cane leggings there. Looking good. Ukraine here joining us as well. So these are athletes from the men's quad that came 12th at World Championships, and the 4, which were 11th at World Cup, and the lightweight double as well. Unusual to see lightweights in a heavy men's 8.
That's true. Now, they could be used to their advantage if they put them maybe towards the bow and use some of that lightweight finesse to kind of get them around some of those turns. So we'll see. It could be an advantage for them. They look pretty good to me.
Absolutely. So what we're looking at here is we're watching their swing together, watching their shoulders. Bow number 13 here, Yale. This is their B crew. You're not having deja vu. There are a couple of crews from the same universities that are entered in. Very usual in the Champs 8, especially at Boston. I mean, we said already with 11,000 athletes, although worth noting that you only get to go down the course once. Well, and I'm sorry, I have to keep talking here because on screen, well, I'm a Canadian myself, so go Thunderbirds. This is the UBC team out of British Columbia, my hometown, my home province. They're an absolute powerhouse. This men's 8 has won CU, so the University Championships, every year since 2017, just defeated UVic at Brown Cup in April, really focused in and coached by Mike Pierce.
And it looks like we have Dartmouth, again, about to come through Elliot Bridge. Actually looking pretty good here. They're getting their blades in. You see that little bit of backsplash where it's not too much to stop the boat, but just enough to connect and really pick up the boat as they kind of charge to that last turn to the finish line.
Well, you run the risk of doing, like getting your thumbs caught in a hoodie or something, and then the blade's out of your hand, and our blades are actually our balance. So we want to be as lightweight as possible. Plus, who doesn't look good in spandex?
Well, that is true. I know for sure that we do.
All right, number 20 here, Northeastern University, coming along well. Again, I wish that we could share with you the sound that it makes when you go underneath these bridges. It just all goes quiet. You get the echo, and all you can hear are the blades going in and out together, chopping into the water.
Absolutely, and that's definitely something that we can use as a coxswain as well to sort of amplify anything that we need to say or get across to our crew as we are charging through these bridges, or just tell them to be quiet and listen.
So let's talk a little bit, because we're doing exclusively 8s in this power hour here. Let's talk a little bit about what the rules are for these 8s and the different seats. And as you can see, I'm just going to point out the graphic on the bottom of your screen. Bow number 1, this is a long race, so we're going to be flipping back and forth between the race that's finishing and the race that's starting. We are now on the lightweight men's 8. But first, I'd like to hear, what's the role of, let's say, the stroke pair, and where do they sit?
So very, very good question. The stroke pair, again, not to be confused with taking strokes or having a stroke coach, but the stroke pair is actually kind of the leader pair, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we're going to have the two sitting right in front of the coxswain. So that is going to be facing me. I'm going to be face to face with that stroke seat, and we are going to be in constant communication with each other. So I'm going to be looking at him or her and saying, like, are you feeling anything? Do you need anything? You know, what can I convey to you? The 7 seat is going to be sitting right behind them. So the second person away from that coxswain, moving towards the bow. And that person is actually going to be relaying the stroke seat to the other side of the boat. So doing the same thing as the stroke seat, but on the other side. So everybody else can follow on both sides.
We essentially just play a game of telephone where we try to get it as right as possible all the way down the boats. Looking here to lightweight men's 8, worth noting that lightweight is, well, pretty much a completely different sport than any other event. We got split screen here as we finish up. Western University on the screen right now, another Canadian crew, so you can hear the excitement in my voice because I love talking about Canada. John Lewis has coached this, coached this, Cox by Ever, and they don't come every year, but I talked to John earlier, and he said that the team sat down, set goals for their last year, and that this coming to Head of the Charles was a reward for hitting the goals last year. So they have earned the right to come down this, and they are just so excited to show what they're capable of.
So how do you think in wind like this we're getting the effect on the lightweights? Because we have the heavyweights that can kind of utilize the wind a little bit, maybe lean into it a little bit more. They have a little bit more weight and a little bit more anchorage, but these lightweights are all about finesse, and they can get blown around a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, right you are. And maybe worth mentioning, giving a little bit of context. So lightweight means that you're going to have to weigh in 2 hours before your event. You have to weigh in at 165 pounds or less per athlete. And then you essentially try and eat and drink as much as you possibly can. I was decidedly a heavyweight and would never want to be lightweights because it seems like a very, very tough thing to do. So whenever I'm talking about quality rowing, I always go to lightweights because these athletes don't have the mass that a heavyweight or an open weight would have. They have to use technique. And so look at those blades, beautiful, hugging the water, just skimming across, and no hang at the catch. Look, those blades just go in and whew, they're gone.
Exactly. I think lightweights are some of the most fun races to watch because every ounce counts on a lightweight. You know, every ounce is being put to work and utilized, but also combined with this finesse that is just so hard to match. So I always call the lightweights the little hummingbirds. They kind of buzz down the course a little bit, and you got to keep feeding them, you know, feed them after the race. But boy, do they have finesse, and they're making this look so easy in this wind.
Yeah, I think hummingbird, I think for me, conjures ideas of something fluffy, and lightweights are ferocious rowers. I mean, this sport, make no mistake, is a pain sport, and certainly when you decide to take it from 2,000 meters to 4,700, you're just extending the amount of time that you have to sit in that lactic acid, sit in that pain. We didn't get a chance to go too deep into the cruise here, but right now on your screen, number 11, U.S. Naval Academy. As on our left screen, we're going over to a little sneak peek of the next races that are coming out. Men's Collegiate 8s, we'll take you through those though, but let's finish up with the men's lightweights 8. Beautiful technique here. So we talked about stroke pair. So those two that we just saw were bow pair. So those are the athletes that get to be the first to cross the finish line. They're usually lighter athletes, and because they are lighter and they're at the front of the boat, they're sitting up higher out of the water. Like the boat is sitting slightly higher. It's kind of shaped almost like a banana. And that means that you have to have excellent technique in bow because you are contributing to the balance of the boat. I always explain rowing as kind of like being a tightrope walker, where you have a balance beam. But in sweeping, which is what you're seeing right now, where you only have half of the balance beam, and the other person behind and in front of you has the other half. So you have to balance each other out, which is easier said than done.
Absolutely. And one thing to note too is a lot of these programs that you see, especially in the men's light eights, have a very, very long history of lightweight rowing. And that is something that unfortunately we are kind of seeing less and less of at the higher levels, like the world level, the Olympic level. But a lot of these collegiate light eights really have a long history of competing with heavyweights. You know, the old Eastern Sprints and Cal Lightweights, on the West Coast. They have a lot of history with, let's see, what is it? Cornell Lightweights. Very, very long program. Coached by Chris Clark back in the day, who I believe now only coaches the heavyweights. But these crews are they have so much history that it's so cool to see them at a race and see so many of them come here when they really don't have that many places to go anymore.
Yeah, this is a tough field here. I'm expecting some close times at the end. I think Harvard is out and looks like they're doing the job to defend the title. They haven't been passed by anyone, and unfortunately, we need to direct you to is it regattamaster.com to actually look at the results once everyone has crossed the line. But right now, we can tell you that Harvard University has not been passed, and they'll be looking to defend the title. But I know that Princeton, Yale, Naval Academy, Georgetown are all going to be punching them down the course, making them work for every single inch.
Absolutely, and we do actually have the course record from Princeton. So Princeton is the reigning champion of the course record. It looks like they went 13:49 in 2017. So conditions do have to be in your favor a little bit to get those course records. It does depend on which way the wind is blowing. And we do have quite a bit of it today, so we'll see if anybody has the guts to go after that record.
Absolutely, bragging rights on for play here, but also medals as well. You have to take a look at Google the medal. It's an iconic one. It's cast in bronze. It's 2.5 inches and shows a single sculler on the front, and it's just iconically Head of the Charles. And Head of the Charles started way back in 1965. There is a history and a legacy to this regatta. It means a lot to just show up here, but man, if you're lucky enough to grab that first place finish, what a feeling. One I've always been in the beer league myself.
Yeah, same. I've actually never gotten some firsts myself, but I have been in the medals quite a few times, just close enough to kiss it or look at it, wave at it from afar. But I also do not have a gold medal myself from this race, despite racing it about 15 times. So, that is something that is sought after every year. You hope that you can put yourself in a position to be able to do that. And it looks like we have bound number 2 here, Princeton Lights, chasing down. I'm going to see, Princeton. We are changing things on our screen here. Princeton, and was that Williams?
Yeah, Williams College. Williams. Yeah, so Williams, they've been the crew to beat the D3 level. They were second last year by 1 second to, Drexel, which you just saw. Look at how close that is. Is that 1 and 2 there? My goodness. All right. It looks like we're going to have another close finish. Hold on to your hats there, but Williams had a confident victory at the IRAs, and they have a new cox. Last year they had Ben Washburn, who was a silver PR3 straight 4 coxswain. He's graduated. Number 4 here, Temple from Philadelphia. They were 4th last year. They could challenge for the title as well. They're certainly an experienced crew. Adrian Oliver, he earned GB a medal in the U23 double. He's in this boat. But they were also beaten by LaSalle at the Navy Day Regatta. We'll see LaSalle a little bit later on in the program.
Absolutely, and LaSalle is also another program that gets to share a lot of water with a lot of these programs. So we have a huge contingent here from Philadelphia on beautiful and iconic Boathouse Row, programs like Drexel and Temple and who else do we have here? St. Joseph's, you name it. And a lot of these programs come from that very, very little stretch of river, which is so cool. If you've ever been to the iconic Boathouse Row, it is definitely something to go check out. And it looks like we have number 6 here, Tufts University. The Jumbos are back with a bunch of geriatrics in the crew.
Worth mentioning this. That's what they say, not we.
Yes.
Yeah, we would never dare.
We did not, yes. Their words, not ours.
Number 14, Yale in the lightweight men's 8. Well, they're through the final bridge here, Elliot Bridge. That means 750 meters left. Wow, imagine the noise of the crowd as you go underneath that bridge.
Absolutely, just echoing back and forth, under those spans. And it's just so cool to hear that right as you're about to make that final kind of quiet turn towards the finish line. It gets a little bit quiet over there.
Look at this overlap. My goodness. Okay, again, 15 seconds apart these boats have come, and now they've got a canvas overlap between these two crews. Definitely one of them is going to be Trinity College. Do you know who's in the pink?
Let's see. I'm trying to see if we can get a little bit
closer.
There we
go. Number 10, WPI out of Worcester. They qualified for the D3 National Champions and the IRA in 2022 and 2023. And there are not a lot of places where you can pass on this. Well, there are a lot of places where you can pass, but there are better places than most. The first half of the race is really your opportunity to try and get by some crews, and that's because there's more straightaways in that. So the job is to try and get past the crew that's in front of you before you get to the next turn, next bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you start hitting those bridges, you do not want to be passing. It is way too easy to get in collisions or entanglements with those oars, and that can get really nasty really quickly, especially as you start coming up to Weeks and Anderson. And I mean, look at this beautiful
look at that shot. Hey? Okay, my legs are kind of twitching underneath the desk because I want to be out there. We got 4 boats and overlap between the two of them. And this is exactly what you come to head of the Charles for, where you can just feel the boat next to you. A coxswain is calling you on, and you are just taking one seat at a time, nice and measured. Or if you're the crew that's being overhauled, trying to stay calm, trying to be able to push off of the other boat. And right now what's happening, it's just a battle of wills between the two boats. Who's going to blink first?
Absolutely. And yeah, like you said, a game of chicken here. We actually have 2 races going on here. It looks like we're going to get multiple boats going through Weeks Bridge at the same time. And we're going to see if we can get a bow number here. It looks bow number 15.
Now, are you allowed to pass on underneath a bridge?
You are not supposed to. No, you are supposed to wait until you have a straightaway or a clear shot. And the leading boat is supposed to yield, or you can get a penalty. So you obviously, as a coxswain, do not want to be adding time to your crew's overall time there.
Ithaca College there, those are the Bombers. They had a clean run last year, moved up 3 places in 2022 and hoping to continue the trend this year. They're also Liberty League runner-up for spring 2022. Lots of races on the water right now, and whoa, this is exactly, I'm so excited. This is what I live for, right?
Absolutely.
This is what everyone's going to be yelling about because there's just an elastic band attached between these 2 boats. This is this is 3, so this is Holy Cross. Holy Cross are the Crusaders, no?
I think they are.
Crusaders, they've got kind of an iconic purple unisuit that's a little bit washed out on our screen, but is really easy to spot in person. Followed closely behind, I'm going to assume that is going to be Temple University out of Philadelphia. Another great, they were 4th last year, and so they're going to try and be hot on the heels to see if they can improve that. Go Owls.
Absolutely. Again, sharing that Philadelphia water, that stretch on the Schuylkill there in front of the iconic Boathouse Row. So they get to see a lot of their rivals training day to day, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, St. Joseph's. I mean, the legacy. This is the 70th season of men's rowing here. Hawks will never die, they told me.
Exactly. And St. Joe's, again, has a long history, too, of doing very, very well. Very old program, like you said, 70th year. Think about what rowing was like 70 years ago. How much things have changed. Unbelievable.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it. It used to, because Boys in the Boat is coming out Christmas Day. I know what my Christmas Day plans are. Sorry, Mom and Dad. But the boats used to be made out of wood. They were very, very heavy. Eventually, they graduated to hollowed out wood. These shells now are made by the same designers as airplanes. They're carbon fiber, and they are designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that goes in a straight line backwards as fast as you possibly can. And here we are, Formula race car driving them left along the Boston River.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also to note that they actually have a rudder about the size of a credit card. So a lot of these boats can be roughly 59 to 63 feet long for an 8, depending on the size, and you are steering with a tiny little credit card and a little rope. And as you can see, these coxswains are doing a phenomenal job doing that just now, coming around the Elliot turn.
Oh my gosh, so the battle continues between Bates and WPI. They are, Bates and it's going to be Wesleyan, I think, actually.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think Bates may have slept behind here. So hard to tell. We're going to have Regatta Master on refresh afterwards, but it continues to be Tufts University as your leader in the 6 boat.
And it looks like Michigan Rowing Association here coming across with LaSalle. And what a battle we have here. Michigan, again, very, very long history of phenomenal rowing. They have a huge and a very, very strong program. And if we look over to our screen here, bow number 29, I'm trying to see who that is crossing now, but the wind is really starting to open up on this straightaway. So these crews are really going to be fighting for those spots before they come around to the bridge, because they're not going to want to leave it to the last minute. The wind is really picking up out here.
Yeah, and the wind can be tricky for a couple of conditions. So we're not racing on a flat surface. We're racing on a moving, breathing, living body of water. And when you're placing a blade, which is your anchor point, then you're pushing the boat past it. If that is, moving, it will create instability. If there's a big wind gust that comes by, that's instability. I mean, very, very little of this boat is actually in the water. The vast majority is above the water, and so your body and your blades are essentially sails, so the wind can catch you and can try and push you off balance, and that can be, to an inexperienced crew, the easiest way to slow down. 16, that's going to be Hobart College. They have a saying called iron sharp. Oh, here, look what they've done is they're holding water. The cox seems to have called that on purpose, sacrificing a little bit of speed for a better line, wouldn't you say?
I would say yes. And you know, you see some of these coxswains take pretty extreme measures if they panic a little bit, or if they get in a bind where they can't quite make the turn that they want through the other side of the bridge. So we've seen coxswains stick their hands down in the water, or have a rower drop out and hold. So we see all kinds of tactics going on to try to make this turn as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Yeah, it is a pretty aggressive turn, and so if you can't do it with the rudder, when I said he had them hold, what that means is he's had one side of the boat hold their blades in the water and act as a bit of a rudder, so that the boat pivots as more dramatic time. I mean, it slows down the boat, but it seems to have had the effect he wanted, so that he didn't overshoot on the other side. Keep in mind, if he overshot on the other side and went over some buoys, that would be a time penalty too. So good calculations there as we watch another bow to stern race.
Absolutely, and it's looking like bow number 23, Notre Dame. 2 members of this crew won the Collegiate 4 last year, so they do have a little bit of experience on this water. Notre Dame typically has a very strong, very large program as well. They have great showings all around the country, so it's really great to see them out here. And what action are we seeing here?
Oh no, it's just like rough water rowing and a little bit of white water being thrown up by Adrian College. That was just the athlete in me going, I empathize. Adrian College is coming off their first ever requalification for the Charles in 2022. But right now on your screen, 22 is Hamilton. This is a team that's returning all but one graduated senior. Lots of there's a huge advantage to having a team that's rowed together before, isn't there?
Absolutely, there really is. When you have a lot of fresh blood kind of coming in and moving up, it's great for a year or two down the line, because it's a good building year and you can have those athletes spend the time together. But if you can show up here and you have the talent that's been together for a long time, it's so advantageous.
24, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So they are locals. They are on home field advantage. Look at this tightness. It looks to me like 28 just went a little bit wide. 29 having a little bit better line behind them. Let's give you some names to go along with that. 28 is Temple, Go Owls, and 29 is Orange Coast.
Now, not to be biased, but I would love to speak to Orange Coast College, my alma mater, Go Coast. They are the only 2-year community college in the country that gets to race against varsity programs. So they have a long history of racing with the likes of Chris Clark, Chris Korzanowski, Amerkanian, Craig Amerkanian up at Stanford. Long history there. So these are no more than sophomores rowing in the Orange Coast College boat.
Rhode Island here, back to Orange Coast. That patented orange color.
but always in that M-pocker.
Yeah. You'll see a bow number. You'll see numbers on these that are helping us out. And not only is there what we call a bow number, that's on the very bow of the boat. That's the part of the boat that crosses the finish line first. But there's also one on bow seat, and that's the person who gets to cross the finish line first. So we have two numbers. And the reason we have a backup number is because if there was a collision or a stiff gust of wind, those bow numbers have been known to take their own route down the course and float away.
That's true. It's also for the photographers. So the photos can come out and they know exactly who to send them to.
Number 31, Delaware. They said that following a strong spring season, while they're still recovering from Team COVID, oh no, they're looking to make a strong showing for Charles 2023. Williams College right behind, underneath the bridge. No one to jostle for position there. It's always great when you can go under Elliot Bridge just by yourself.
Absolutely, and it looks like 33 Trinity. They're from Hartford, Connecticut, and Trinity is a fairly small program, but very, very mighty. They have oftentimes showed up at Eastern races against big time crews and done very, very well. So they have a history, again, of being a little bit smaller, but a very, very strong program.
Looks like Tufts University has still put down the fastest time here of 12 minutes and 58 seconds. Tough conditions today, so I'm not sure if there's going to be any records broken, but we'll have to take a look. A tailwind can be incredibly helpful, though, can't it?
It certainly can. As you are coming through some of these bridges, if you can get a little bit of a wind tunnel push, it looks like... Let's see, we have the course record still Drexel again. Is that Drexel? Mm-hmm. With the course record again. But our leader here is Tufts.
Yeah.
Still.
It looks like we may have a new course record. We'll have to confirm that there. But we're looking at our pieces of paper. If those are right, we'll not overstate that as we look at another bow to stern here. A couple, I'd say about 4 seats of overlap. We're looking at number 39. That is Wesleyan from Middletown, Connecticut. 2 boats right underneath. And so on the other side of this Elliot Bridge is actually where I was stationed for the vast majority of my wind tunnel today. And so when you come out of Elliot Bridge right now, I can tell you conditions are a pretty savage head crosswind, nothing helpful about it whatsoever. And you just have to make sure that you're sitting up straight, that you are placing those blades all the way and covering them with water, and you might bring the stroke rate down a little bit, and you have to just muscle through. On the other side of Elliot Bridge, you're doing your very last turn. Your turn is to starboard, so you're going to be turning right if you were following along behind in a boat. And then there you have a little bit of a straightaway, about 300 meters, to maybe do a sprint with all that leftover energy you have.
Exactly. And you just saw on your screen just a moment ago, Oklahoma City University. I don't want to overlook them. This is their first time that they have an 8 entered in the Charles. So very exciting for them. It looks like they had a great line through Elliott. So hopefully they've executed a good race plan here. And jumping right into number 42, this looks like Fairfield. Now they say it's a long time since they've tried their hands at rowing an 8. So it seems to be working out for them because look at this blade work in the wind.
And how cool is it that we have so many crews, so many bodies on the water? You know, I look at the international level, and sometimes it can be hard to have even 6 boats at an international regatta. And here we have 42 just in this one category alone, and I know we're about to have 34 in the Women's Championship 8s, which are on the left-hand side of your screen right now. Let's take a look at them because I don't want to miss an opportunity to talk about the Pink Palace Leander from Great Britain. These are the defending Head of the Charles champions. They're also the first British crew to win this event, and this boat is absolutely stacked with top end of the women's squad, and I'd say Olympic hopefuls for LA 2028.
Absolutely, yes. Now, we made the mistake earlier, I made the mistake earlier of calling the wrong coxswain here, but it is Henry Fieldman, in fact, that is in the coxswain seat with years and years of experience on the Thames, which is an incredibly difficult course to row, and also at Leander. So it is his first time down this course. Juliet Perry also in there. Lots and lots of Henley wins, many, many years of experience there. But let's take a look at what is happening now.
Yeah, I'm itching. I'm jumping out of my skin here next to Whit because this is so spicy and I'm so excited. This is two boats right next to each other. Like, this race has just started. Well, maybe not just started. I'm sure that they're a decent amount in. But there is a overlap here as of course our feed freezes at the wrong time. It's okay. I'll tell you all about these crews. So I saw there Washington for sure, right? That's Cox by Olivia Murdoch. They place second at the NCAA championships. And then we're going to zoom out to another great overview. Like, look at those boats. There's two boats right next to each other. Another one trying to overtake or being overtaken by. And this gives you an appreciation for how sharp that turn is. That Weeks?
Yes, it is. And as you can see, again, we have a few different races going on here. And these crews, you better believe, are going to be making every move they can to try to pass or overtake before they hit that bridge, because that is a nasty turn to try to overtake.
I went out there the other day with legendary coxswain Lee Heyman. He actually doesn't know how many times he's rowed the regatta, but he certainly won it 8 times. And we went to Weeks Bridge and we just watched people and watched their line. And he says in all of those times that he's raced, he's probably only nailed that line about 5 or 6 times. So that gives you an appreciation for how difficult it can be to kind of like shoot the gap. Two boats next to each other here. One of them for sure is the Danish national team. I actually just was talking about them. So this is comprised of the Danish, get this, sweethearts. I love the Danes. So not known for their large boats. They just missed out on qualifying at World Championships for the Olympics by less than 2 seconds. Heartbreaking. And so what they've done is they have put the very best of their teams, the 4, the second, and the lightweight pair and the lightweight double into a boat together.
Well, and that's probably so fun for them, too, as a small boat rower, to be able to jump into a different boat class and row as one team.
And get international experience, right? We have people from all over the world coming to this, and some from closer to home, like Syracuse. They finished 8th at the 2023 NCAA Championships. Great color. I love a bright school color, hey?
Oh, especially against this gray. You know, we have the darker water. You know, it's starting to get a little bit dark out here, the cloud cover. And so those kits just really pop. Yeah.
So right about now, the lactic acid has probably really set in, and you're realizing, woo, this is a little longer than I'm used to. These athletes will have probably changed their training to practice this. They're not going to be as high of a stroke rate. And when I say stroke rate, I mean how many strokes they're taking per minute. They're not going to be as high as they would for 2 minutes because they have to sustain their power for longer. And their coxswain will be one of the people who will help them make sure that they're on track and that they're not going out too hard. If you go out too hard and you don't have any energy in the left in the back half, I mean, that's what we call a fly and dive. Something I was it was a specialty of mine for sure. But I'm sure that they'll all be measured athletes on the course today.
Absolutely. And again, looking here at our screen, those beautiful colors this camera is catching. And we have more clumps starting to form here as we come up to Weeks Bridge. It looks like that lead boat here. We can't quite tell who that is from this angle, but they have the course, and then followed by 2 or 3 boats that are pretty close together, and they are going to have to be vying for that spot.
Blades just over the buoy line. This is the last turn before Elliot Bridge, and this sometimes can feel like poor starboard has to hold harder and port going a little bit lighter for ages. I mean, we're in a straight water sport typically, so in a head race, it can feel like you're turning forever. Look at that. Oh my gosh, masterclass in steering there from Leander Club. They're looking so strong. And what I really love about them is that I'm seeing all the blades going in together, and I'm seeing an equal amount of swing from the bodies. It doesn't look like anyone is hunching over at the catch. If you tend to drop your shoulders or drop your face and you look down at the catch, which is when you're compressed, when your knees are up and your hands are up at the very front of the stroke, you're about to put the blades in the water, then if you're exhausted and hunching over, your blades are going to sky and you don't get that nice clean placement. I didn't see any of that from Leander.
Absolutely. And on your screen now, it looks like we have the second U.S. rowing boat, and I believe we have 3 in this race.
Oh,
So let's
this
talk
is
about
so
it.
exciting.
I
Okay.
know.
I was talking to someone earlier. I was so looking for this. There are 3 American boats in this race. Washington was on your screen right now, but let's talk of them. So not only do we have an 8 with the silver medalist from the 2023 World Rowing Champions, they're 8 months out from Paris. We also have an 8 that is comprised entirely of scullers, and we also have what we're calling the Vibe 8. It's 2V vibes, where your job is just to go out, have fun, and make 1V life as difficult as you possibly can.
And speaking of scullers, here they are now. Bow number 5 for the women's Champ 8. These are comprised of names you have probably heard before. Michelle Sescher, Kara Kohler, Sophia Vitas, Christy Wagner, Mary Nabel, Molly Ruckford. You know those names.
And worth mentioning, in case because we're just covering 8s just for this little power hour. So there's 2 disciplines in rowing. There's sculling and there's sweeping. So sweeping, you have 1 oar that you hold in both hands. You're seeing that on your screen right now. And then sculling, you have 2 blades that you hold in each hand. It's kind of like doing different disciplines, and track was maybe perhaps one of the best analogies I've heard. The kit might be the same, but they're completely different sports.
Absolutely. And it looks like we have quite a boat race here. We have bow number 8. That is Princeton University, and they are almost going toe-to-toe here, maybe 2 seats down.
Ooh.
I want to be sure from our angle, but going through Elliot Bridge, they are going to be fighting for that line on the other side.
Yeah, and the one with that's on the right-hand side of your screen, they have the inside course, because on the other side of that, there's going to be a turn to the right. Man, that feeling when you're just taking 1 seat at a time. In our boat, if we would get ahead of the bow ball, so that's a very, very top spit. You can see right there, a little white ball just underneath the number 11. When we got the bow ball, we would then pass the bow ball down the boat by whispering to each other, bow ball, and it motivated us to keep pushing along.
Well, I love to hear it. And you know, one thing I've noticed about this women's race in particular is that a lot of the coxswains are doing a phenomenal job steering around this final turn. And look how close, almost every single one of them has been over the buoy lines. And we've seen a few get pushed out maybe a little bit wide, maybe taken by surprise by that turn just a little bit. But even look here now, Yale, bow number 13, hugging those buoy lines. Beautiful line that she's got right through Elliot. And right behind bow number 3, we've got a lot of overlap here. We're going to try to catch up on these boat races that are happening so quickly.
Yeah, I think Head of the Charles was best explained to me as a coxswain's race. A coxswain can not necessarily in a traditional 2K race. It's not that you can't make the boat faster, but your job is to get 100% out of the athletes and to steer the boat in a straight line and not be detrimental. In this race, you have such an effect on how fast the boat is going because you're the one picking the moments. Does my team have enough to push past this boat? You're picking the line as well. You're being super strategic. So we're looking right here, we have number, it looks like 17 going a little bit wider, right? Whereas the crews behind it look like they're trying to line up to get those blades right over the buoy line, taking as few meters off as they possibly can.
And actually, that was a perfect example of this coxswain here in the lead having to make that decision to yield to the boat that was starting to overtake her just a little bit on the inside so she doesn't get hit on her stern. But it looked like she made her crew push a little bit more around this turn, and now she's opened up a little bit of water, so she's gotten her crew to safety.
Yeah, a good coxswain will also have to read the wind too. So there's definitely a headwind, but I think there's a crosswind as well. And so if that crosswind happens to be blowing in such a way that it's going to push you into the buoy line, then you're going to need to account for that. And you might not want to flirt with the buoy line as much as you would like to, because what you're doing is you're risking having to correct your line being pushed over the buoys, in which case you'll get a time penalty.
Or a buoy blowing out of line, too. That happens sometimes, too.
Right you are. Boston University women's crew on your screen on the right here. Home water advantage, home field advantage. I can tell you right now that there's plenty of cheering in the crowd, but it seems to be extra loud for the Boston athletes.
Well, I mean, how can they not? It is their home course, and they're a very, very proud school, a very, very proud bunch. So you better believe that they are going to have fans all over this river, which, I don't know, hometown advantage. I mean, when you have the home crowd, it does help a little bit.
For sure, Stanford University here being pushed by, I believe, 21. Oh, that's Canada. So Stanford overhauling UBC. This team is coached by Craig Pond. I talked to the coach earlier today, and well, he said that he's coached a lot of crews, and this is an absolute standout one. That they have won 3 of the last CUs. They have courage, intent, grit. I talked to some of the girls too, and they just seem so focused on leaving it all on the course. There's a lot of different definitions of success too, right? We've talked about, you can get a medal, but there's with, how many did I say? 52, 42 boats, right? You also have to make sure you're really clear about what success looks like for your crew. And if going out and executing your race and executing your line is a definition of success, then that's worth noting.
Absolutely. For a lot of these crews, it may not be to win. They may be, actually, excuse me,
let's just take a look at what's...
Yeah, let us interrupt our broadcast here. We actually have a women's light 8 getting out.
And I think that these have to be the men's light 8, I'd
like
say.
Light
I think
8
we just got the wrong graphic because they're
they,
celebrating.
They rose up behind the crowd, and now we can tell it's actually men.
Yeah.
Sorry to the women.
Yeah. Okay. Phew, I was worried someone was injured.
Right.
Number 25, Drexel University here.
Also sharing that home water, the Drexel Dragons there on that wonderful stretch. And it looks like they have a little bucket set up here. Have you ever been in a bucket?
Yes, I have been in a bucket. I rode in a bucket at the Olympics. They have 2 buckets, actually, which is really interesting. You would set up a bucket for a myriad of different reasons. Maybe the boat will run a little bit straighter. In our case, we did it because we wanted a certain person in stroke and bow. The qualities that they had just suited our boat just right. It suited me just fine, too, because as a sculler, I could just sit behind someone else and follow them and lean out to the same way. But it's really a coach's preference. Look at this overlap. Oh my gosh, 3 boats and cabins across all 3.
And it looks like University of Michigan, again, huge program, very, very strong background. Washington State University, so they're upstate central Washington just a little bit, as well as Stanford. And they're going to get squished right in there. Stanford better squeeze their way out.
Amazing. 3 boats underneath Elliot Bridge. That is definitely going wild right now.
And they are stern to bow.
Yeah, they made it all out in one piece, which is good because we've seen that not happen in some of the youth events. So I think that's really a testament to the coxswains. Again, it's a coxswains race, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll take credit where we can get it.
Yeah, okay. I'm just really excited by that. I love a little bit of thrill, right?
Exactly.
Okay, gorgeous line here as I squint. And on your left-hand side of the screen, worth mentioning that the women's lightweight 8s have started. Bow number 1, well, that's Radcliffe. The higher you placed in previous rounds and previous head of the Charles, the higher the lower your bow number. So usually a good indication. I know the women's lightweight 8 is always a great early season look at the women's lightweight collegiate field. We have local crews from Boston University, MIT, Radcliffe, and I'll be excited to perform on home river.
Absolutely, and I do want to note too, finishing up the women's champ 8s, we just saw University of Washington in that neon. University of Washington oftentimes races in that bright, bright neon with the purple W's. Absolutely unable to be missed, and that is Western Ontario.
Yeah, Western University, Purple W. Bob Ward has coached this team. They're here for experience, so they have the Canadian universities in about 3 weeks. So worth noting, the Canadian field, we peak a little bit later. So these crews are potentially more primed for racing, but they're also very experienced in the wind because Ontario be breezy. Lots of parents coming and driving down from Ontario as well, and I imagine not just for our out-of-town guests, but also for all of these hometown people. Plenty of signs, lots of cowbells on the water today.
Well, you can always use more cowbell, can't you?
More cowbell. MIT on the water right now, lightweight 8s. We talked about it already, but these athletes will be weighing in at 130 pounds before 2 hours before their race. in order to make it. And also, let's talk about the coxswains, because coxswains have to weigh in too, right, Whitney?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. Now, coxswains on the men's side have to weigh in at 55 kg. So that is about 125 pounds. It's just a little bit.
Is it not the same for male versus female?
I believe they made it equal now, but it was not for a very long time. And they used to do it by pounds, where it was 115 pounds for women and 125 for men. So now 55 kg across the board. We're trying to equal things out a little bit on the coxswain side. So if you do not make weight, you have to go find some sand or some weight. You have to go to the beach, fill up a bag, and bring it back.
Literally, you have to bring a sandbag, and the starter will ask you to show the sandbag to prove that you have a maximum weight that you need to hit, or sorry, a minimum weight that you need to hit, whereas the lightweight rowers have a maximum weight that they need to hit.
Absolutely. It's sort of like jockeys. You know, we have to weigh in with all of our stuff, and they make us wear just our race gear, just our race kit, and we stand on the scale with our sand baby, and there we go. Dead
Giddy
weight.
up.
Yep.
Yeah, lots of horse analogies today. I'm here for it.
We do have a lot.
Coming through Elliot Bridge here, Champ 8. This is boat number 27 of 34, Avalon Rowing Club. From, oh gosh, can't say this town.
Shincoteague.
Thank you.
Shincoteague, Virginia. That's actually an island off of Virginia, famous for its ponies, funny enough.
Okay.
I know. Funny, more horses, but it is true. They are famous for their wild horses.
Then worth mentioning that Western University is the Mustang. So we'll see what other horse analogies.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Horse Facts with Andrea and Whitney. We're here to watch the women's collegiate 8. Let's take a look as we zoom in. Okay, let's talk about what we're seeing right here. So as the athletes are bringing those oars into their bodies, that's what we call the finish. The complete opposite side of that, so when their oars are as close to the coxswain as it possibly can, that is called the catch. What they're doing when they're going from the catch to the finish, so one moment, right here, that's called the drive. And on the opposite way, that's called the recovery. So as you're coming up to the catch. The boat actually goes the fastest on the recovery. So what I'm saying is the boat goes fastest when the oars are out of the water. And that's because rowing is essentially a game of drag. And so after you've generated that power and you bring the blades out, the boat just runs and surges underneath you. And that's why the recovery coaches will talk about this to no end. The recovery is the most important part of the stroke.
Absolutely. And as we kind of start transitioning to the women's lightweight 8s, we see Radcliffe Crew on our screen now, bow number 1.
Little wobble.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you notice any difference in women's lightweight and heavyweight rowing?
In terms of technique?
Yes.
I mean, I can get away with worse technique than the lightweight athletes can because I have more mass to me. In windy conditions as well, the boat is just heavier, so we're a little less likely to be blown around. But these, I mean, let's give you a little bit of scale. So we will row the same amount of boat. Also worth noting that lightweight rowing is a non-Olympic event. Heavyweight rowing is an Olympic event. So these shells are 60 feet long. They're 212 pounds. They get up to about 15 miles per hour. And in that 212 pounds, they can hold about 1,750 pounds. So, I mean, it's a big, heavy boat, and it go fast.
Exactly. And one thing you do notice sometimes too is that lightweights will actually bring the rate up a little bit sometimes. They might row a tick or two higher. Yeah. Maybe not through an entire race if it's quite so long, but they can withstand a little bit higher rating sometimes to kind of keep the boat moving and just clipping along.
Right, you are. Georgetown is underneath Elliot Bridge here. Love the showing today. Yesterday we had pouring rain, but the bridges were still packed with plenty of umbrellas. Georgetown, we've seen them here before, so welcome back. Okay, look at that. What bridge is that? And know your bridges. Whitney is my mentor.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like that is the River Street Bridge.
Yeah.
There we go.
Getting thumbs up from our tech team.
Making sure I'm seeing my screen correctly here. That I'm at that. We are actually backwards.
And that's the second bridge that you go through, and this is right during kind of like the straightaway called the Powerhouse stretch.
Exactly. So this is actually going to be the third bridge on the course. So we're going to start with the BU bridge and come around the train tracks here. And then we have these two bridges in a row, which is the straightest part of the course. It's also very quiet and opens up quite a bit. So a lot of times crews will try to kind of settle in and refocus and kind of get internal before they start the chaos with the bridges and where boats kind of start to clump up a little bit. So this is a really great part of the course to actually find your rhythm before you try to overtake and start moving through those turns.
Absolutely. Called the Powerhouse, not just because that's what you need to do. You got to powerhouse your way through, but also because there is a literal powerhouse there.
Yeah.
So there you go. Fun facts. More horse facts?
More horse facts.
More horse facts?
Absolutely. Yes, they are actually letting the horses run here as they go down the course, coming out of the Powerhouse stretch, and they are going to start looking at that Weeks turn. And that is a tricky one that I personally love so much. I think it's one of the most beautiful turns on the course. But let's see, what are we cringing at over here? What's happening?
Okay, not cringing. I think more, not like, I'm not judging, but you can see that the boat isn't set, and I'm assuming that that has to be, oh yeah, that doesn't look like fun. It has to be because of the conditions. Look at that lumpy water right behind them, right? So the boat is being pushed off by, offset. You see a lot of the crews seem to be having the same problem. I mean, you really have to fight the conditions here, and it's changing from gust to gust. So I was more just kind of like having flashbacks and PTSD of my own experiences.
I can imagine. And actually, as we get a little closer to the surface of that water, you can see it's actually worse. So from when we're pulled back a little bit, it looks not so good. But then when you're really in it, you can almost feel what that feels like if you are a coxswain or an athlete that has been in those positions. And I think all of us have at this point.
Side by side here, we have a Collegiate 8 now on the water. So tons of crews in this. We have 35 competitors. And right now we are riding with number 9 on the right-hand side of your screen.
Looks like Bates College. And
right you are.
And actually, because we are already seeing bow number 28, 9, and 10, that means that they have probably overtaken a few crews. So if you are a crew that's quite quick, but you're starting near the back of the pack, you have to hunt down these crews in front of you one at a time, and that can be quite a task.
Yeah, and that's why it's an advantage to be able to be seated as early as you can. But you know what? Also kind of fun to be able to be in a position where you have perhaps a couple slower crews in front of you, where you can power through. It gives you like a boost of confidence, right?
Exactly, but you do have to earn it.
Absolutely. All right, number 12, Tufts University coming through. Jumbo women. They finished 3rd at the NCAA.
And let's make note, too, that these women are not jumbo. They are just called that from the school.
Yeah, good distinction. Clark University, I mean, they're coming off of 2 fantastic years with appearances at Women's Henley. I watched them race there as I commentated the San Diego Crew Classic. This year's team, I mean, they're significantly younger, having graduated 12 of the 16 in the top 2 8s in the spring of 2023. But a young boat, a young crew means a rebuild year and an opportunity for novice rowers to really step up into the driver's seat.
Absolutely, and even now it looks, who do we have? Somebody overtaking. As soon as I can get a little bit closer on our view there, is that bow number 15, Hamilton College, making a move. They are now overlapping bow to stern. They are hunting down that coxswain there and trying to overtake maybe before they get to the next bridge there. And it does look like that. Okay, so that is bow number 15, Hamilton. They got a 2nd place finish at the New York State Championships. The team overall points as well. So good for them, making a good showing here at the head of the Charles. Followed by bow number 14, that was Bryn Mawr. The Women's College, they did the D3 8s category at Dad Vales. And they would like to thank all the parents and alums for coming to watch today. So they must have a contingent out to support them.
Ooh, look at this. 3 boats. You're coming towards Elliot. Mercyhurst just holding on for dear life here. Their coach is Adam Spracklin, a son of a legendary coach Mike Sprackland. He coached Russia, he coached Canada. These athletes are two-time champions in this event, many returning from last year's crew, so they're looking for a hat trick and a third victory, but wow, are they under pressure here.
Exactly, and it looks like our course record is actually Bates College, and that is 16:01, and right now it looks like Radcliffe is our leader here. So Radcliffe is our leader, but Mercyhurst has, just as we speak, overtaken this. They are at 15:25 right now, so they are on pace to try to take the record. We will see. We will see.
We'll see with bated breath. Two boats underneath. Wesley, little look out from the Wellesley. I said Elder Elliot. Wellesley coxswain took a look at Tufts University. Those two. Wellesley, anyways, narrowly finished second last few years, so I'm expecting another sprint to the finish line. But it looks like Tufts want to have something to say about that too.
Exactly. Tufts now has overtaken as the leader, so we are seeing the leader constantly change in this race. This is a very exciting race, I have to say. Edge of our seats, bow number 5. This looks like Trinity again. Phenomenal program up at Trinity. Very, very strong.
Cox by Juliana Boris as she gets her crew down. Let's take a look here. Number 7. So this is Williams College. Williams College. They had a third place finish at the 2023 NCAA Championships. Their team values are excellent. Trust, love. Love that. You can't row a boat without love and trust, certainly. Trust in each other that you're going to go to that dark place that you need to go. Trust in your coxswain that he or she is going to be able to make the calls that are going to get you to where you need to be, and trust in yourself, most of all, that you are capable.
Absolutely. You do have to back yourself. That's true. And it looks like they have sort of course corrected a little bit here. They went out a little bit wide around that Elliot turn, but they have come back through and looks like they may have a pretty good line through that turn. Again, coming around Elliot here, we have bow number 8, Wellesley. Back to your Wellesley. See if we can pronounce that. Looking pretty good here. They're starting to sit up a little bit more, probably hoping to be done pretty soon. This is a very tiring course. There's a lot to do mentally on this course as well. So to stay checked in for this long is really a testament to a lot of these crews and how well they're doing. Yeah,
and that was the Wellesley second varsity 8. They do have 2 boats in this race, so we saw Wellesley fighting there in second spot. Right behind them, well, it looks like Bates College and WPI, the WPI women's rowing. I mean, they're one of the best in the D3 programs in the country. They're NCAA champions in the V8 in 2022. Fantastic crew. So, I mean, this is the field that you want to be in. These are the people you want to race against, isn't it?
Exactly, and it looks like bow number 11 Westland was also right behind them, so it means that they have actually maintained their positions, and followed by number 12, bow number 12 here, Tufts University. So we have actually maintained the order, the starting order, all the way down the course so far. So I'm guessing that some of these coxswains are really going to be vying for some of those overtaking spots.
Right you are. There you go. You can throw a blanket over this field here with overlap in the Collegiate Women's 8s. We've got the Catholic University of America among the mix, bow number 28 on the left-hand side of your screen. Well, number 13, that is Clark University crew. Do we know anything about Clark? I know they're coming off of 2 fantastic years with, I already talked about Women's Henley, right? Women's Henley, by the way, is held in Great Britain. It is the only all-women's rowing event, regatta, in the entire world, and it's something that was one of my very first international events, and is certainly really, really near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely, and they have started adding a few women's events to Henley Royal, but for the women to have their own event, it's really quite special and different than Henley Royal. It really has its own mood and vibe, and just such a great community of women from all over the world.
Yeah, it's a really empowering place. It's just intoxicating to be there, and there's a real clear I think I mentioned this stat yesterday, and I'm just going to keep repeating it, is that 97% of C-suite women have a background in organized sport. These athletes that we're seeing on the screen right now, we're not just teaching them to go in a straight line backward. We're not just teaching them all those skills around nutrition and teamwork and trust and love, or what those great values that the crew earlier had, but we are teaching them leadership skills that go on to serve them well off the field of play. And that's why it's important to show up like these spectators are and cheer for these fantastic athletes like the ones from Ithaca College that we're seeing right now. They're coming off a third place finish at the NCAA championship in the varsity 8.
Absolutely. And look how good they look too. They're starting to sit up a little bit more. It actually looks like just now they brought the rate up a little bit as we were watching them cross the screen here. Like they're getting excited. They're jumping the gun, with the horses.
No,
letting the horses loose through the bridge.
Yeah, let's go. Let them loose. No, I mean, like this, that makes sense. There's 750 meters left. You're almost there. You're going through the bridge. The end is in sight. Why not? Let's just take the rate up a little bit, right? Let's just row like just a fraction shorter so that we're making sure that we're being really connected at both ends. And let's be effective as we possibly can and see what we can squeeze out of the back half, right? Reverse splits.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
You never want to leave anything in the tank, and a lot of these crews too are going to be vying for a spot for the next year. So I don't know if we mentioned too that the finish order here, at least in the top half, will actually go to the order of finishers for the next year and be offered to the crews for that bow number for the next year. So it is worth it to try to fight for a top spot.
I mean, really, everyone wants a bow number in the single digits, don't we? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Number 23, U.S. Coast Guard Academy on your screen right now. Go Bears. And, little look out. I believe that's from Colby, perhaps on your right-hand side, just being pushed by bow number 20, which is Williams College. The coxswain there from Colby College, that's Shayna Lineberger, taking a look out and going, all right, girls, we got to go. There's these moments in a race that are like traffic light moments, right? All right, this is a red light moment. Do I need to do something special? This is a yellow light moment. I need to keep the pressure on and we're not out of the danger yet. Or is this green light? Everything's going well and stick to the plan. And that looked like a red light moment to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and one thing we're also noticing too as we can see these crews coming around this Elliot turn is sometimes they get caught by surprise at that little double buoy. You can actually see on your upper left-hand screen there's 2 red buoys where the turn starts to get a lot sharper, and a lot of crews can get surprised by that turn. So it really takes a coxswain that's looking ahead at that turn and at the Elliot Bridge to really keep them in line on those buoys, just kissing the line over and over again so they can get that straight shot through the bridge.
Love that we have your coxswain experience to give us an insight info. And as we were just watching that shot of all the people lined along the banks, worth noting that there's not just spectators on the banks, there's not just spectators on the bridge, but I think I counted it the other day, these crews go by something like 8 or 9 boathouses. Like Boston is just a mecca for rowing. It's amazing how many crews there are here, at least says the Canadian, where everything is at least 3 hours away. And so it's a pretty exciting moment to have not just people, spectators cheering on for you, but to be able to go by your boathouse. How special is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, and this race just has such a long history itself that it's so neat that so many boathouses just get to row on this course every single day. It's so, so special and such a beautiful part of the city and the river that it's so nice that they can come here and throw down in front of friends, family, coaches, teammates, and the likes. And it looks like Wesleyan, Middletown, coming across our screen now, bow number 30. Why do they look so cool, calm, and collected? I
mean, if you're doing it right, it does look. It's kind of like a duck on the water, right? You look super cool, chill, and on the inside, you're just dying, mostly. So I imagine, I'm projecting a little bit here from my own experiences of racing head of the Charles, but I imagine there's a little bit of dying here. And the reason why good rowing looks effortless is because Loose is fast. Relaxation is fast. And when you start to tense up, you start maybe breaking your arms a little bit too soon. You start having what I like to call power bleeds. So you're not translating the power on the face of the blade all the way to the foot stretcher, and you just become ineffectual. You're putting a lot of energy outside the boat into rather than moving the boat.
Absolutely. And as you say that, let's talk about who's loose and who's probably getting a little bit tense here in that group coming around Elliot, because we have a little bit of a breakaway here. Bow number 31, William Smith from Geneva, New York. Caw-caw.
Caw-caw, I think, is how I'm reading the bio. So caw-caw, indeed, because behind them there is a pretty tight bunch here and coming towards a bridge, so a little bit nervous. Going to see how this plays out here, but it looks like number 33, Hamilton, has the inside. I mean, these are the last through boats. We only have 35 here, and this is boat number 33 on your screen, or
that
6?
actually looks like bow number 6.
Bow number 6 on your screen right
University of Calgary?
now? Does look like Calgary colors. In which case, shout out to Calgary. It's frozen 6 months out of the year, so exciting to see them here and on water because they're going back to essentially winter conditions. Go Calgary, really, really excited to have you here. They've come down ahead of the Charles last year as well. Number 35, Trinity College on your screen at the moment. They are NIRC 9th place in the 2V. And yes, loose and fast is probably what the coxswain is saying to them, but as a coxswain yourself, what is the call that you're making right now?
Probably something pretty similar, to be honest. Something about loosening up and staying long through this bridge, because the race is not over. And although you are making that turn to the finish, and your rowers are going to be very excited to hear that, we still need to keep them reined in a little bit and say, you still have time to go. I will tell you when to let the horses run again. And we can kind of take the rate up a little bit and let them loose. So there's still time for that. So this is a little bit premature to kind of let them go too soon.
Bow number 21 from Bowdoin College in Brunswick.
I believe that's pronounced Bowdoin.
Thank you. Well, you know, the rower and me saw B-O-W and it has to be bow.
You'd never know.
Bowdoin? No. Thank God you guys aren't having me call names. I am equally bad at that. But I'm very good at watching rowing, and we can see the bucket here again. Keen eyes might have seen that. Bucket in, we have a 6 and 7 coming through Elliot Bridge.
And look at those checkers too. I love it when those blades are checkered or they have a cool design on them that stands out.
I love fashionable things. I mean, really, I almost wish that my home team has pretty loud colors, but I feel like we need like checkers or like Leander, like a nice pink hippo or something a little bit more exciting.
Fashion over function.
For sure. I mean, fashion makes you good tights. Loud tights do make you go at least 2% faster. And then Oakleys, I'm thinking about 30% faster if you wear Oakleys, right?
At least.
At least,
maybe
yeah.
Depending on the model.
It's factual. Number 32, Manhattan College. 34. Manhattan College, they competed in the head of the Charles in the last 2 years, so they know this course really well, and we see that by that great line that she took underneath Elliot Bridge. Just trying to close the gap as much as they can here. They're going to be setting up for that final turn as they get into the straightway. 750 meters left until the end of the women's collegiate eights, and that was it, our power hour here in between two bridges, although perhaps more aptly named 6 bridges. I wish we could just stay on with you a little bit later, but we just wanted to bring you a little bit of fun from 2 8s rowers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, some of the many premier events that we have here at the head of the Charles every year, with so many different countries, colleges, universities, programs, clubs represented, all in one stretch of 3 miles on the Charles River. So it was absolutely lovely to come between some of these bridges with you and talk about some rowing.
Yeah, and you know what, you don't have to, although we won't be continuing the stream, lots of action still ahead, so we're actually racing all the way until 4:22 Eastern Standard Time. The racing continues with some fantastic men's collegiate 4s are underway right now, going to the Directors' Challenges as well. The last event of the day is Directors' Challenge, Mix 8s, so go check it out, go cheer on from the comfort of your living room, or better yet, come down, have a bowl of a clam chowder. I've had 4, and we hope that you enjoyed Between Two Bridges. Take care.